Detective Tales, The Groundhog Day Tragedy, a Detective Agatha Marple mystery, thriller and suspense, Part 2. Chapter 4. The sun had dipped low, casting elongated shadows across Willowview's snow-blanketed streets. The town, usually vibrant with the hum of daily life, now seemed enveloped in a hushed tension, each flake of snow a silent witness to the unfolding mystery. Inside the Parkhurst residence, the Grand Library remained a sanctuary of opulence and introspection. Agatha Marple sat alone at the polished writing desk, her mind meticulously sifting through the day's interviews and observation. Agatha's keen eyes had already begun to notice subtle discrepancies and patterns that others might overlook. As she reviewed her notes, two particular items stood out, their significance not yet fully apparent, but promising to unravel the tangled threads of Martin Parkhurst's demise. 1. The torn document. A glimpse of Martin's wastebasket had revealed a partially shredded document, its remnants strewn across the ornate rug. Agatha retrieved her magnifying glass, delicately piecing together the fragments. The document referenced the festival's budget, specifically noting unaccounted funds. Several lines were heavily crossed out, obscuring their original intent. Interesting, Agatha mused to herself, her dry wit finding humor in the irony of hidden truths. Even in death, Martin tried to obscure the finances. She meticulously reconstructed the torn pages, revealing snippets of correspondence between Martin and Jonathan Wicks. There were mentions of increased expenditures, lavish decorations, and unexplained allocations. The crossed-out lines hinted at a deeper layer of secrecy, perhaps an attempt to hide misappropriated funds or undisclosed expenditures. 2. The footprints in the snow. Earlier that evening, a fresh layer of snow had been disturbed near Martin's study window. Agatha had instructed the constable to preserve the scene, but the evidence remained elusive under the relentless snowfall. However, careful examination revealed faint footprints leading towards the window, their pattern suggesting the weight and stride of a taller individual. Footprints, a classic Christie clue, Agatha thought, her mind racing through possibilities. Whose? She compared the footprints to the known shoe sizes and styles of the town's residents. Jonathan Wicks's polished boots, Lawrence Atkins's sturdy brogues, Kelly Stokes's practical footwear, and Calvin Morris's worn-out boots each presented distinct patterns. The footprints matched none perfectly, but bore a slight resemblance to Lawrence's meticulous gait, a potential red herring or a clue pointing towards him. Determined to connect these clues, Agatha decided to revisit the study where Martin had been found. The room, with its heavy oak desk and cluttered papers, now seemed a repository of secrets waiting to be unearthed. As she entered, the room felt colder, the air thick with unspoken truths. Agatha's eyes scanned the area, noting the strategic placement of items and the shadows that seemed to linger unnaturally. She approached the desk, her fingers gently tracing the edge where Martin had lain. There, beneath a stack of papers, she discovered a small hidden compartment. Inside lay a neatly folded letter, its edges crisp despite the disarray of the study. Unfolding the letter, Agatha read Martin's hurried handwriting. Dear Dorothy, I fear that the festival's finances are in jeopardy. There are discrepancies I must address before the opening ceremony. I believe someone within our circle is siphoning funds. Tomorrow I intend to confront them. Please ensure Winston's safety. The letter confirmed Agatha's suspicions. Martin had been aware of financial misdeeds, and his impending confrontation had likely precipitated his untimely death. With the torn document and the letter in hand, Agatha returned to her study, the weight of the revelation pressing upon her. She pondered the connections. Unaccounted funds indicated financial impropriety, possibly involving Jonathan Wicks or someone else with access to the budget. Footprints suggested surveillance or premeditation, potentially pointing toward someone who wanted Martin's silence discreetly. The letter revealed Martin's intention to expose internal corruption, making him a target for those threatened by his discovery. Armed with this new information, Agatha knew she needed to confront the suspects with precision. Each interview had planted seeds of doubt, but now she had tangible evidence to guide her inquiries. Jonathan had already admitted to clashing with Martin over festival expenses, but Agatha suspected there was more beneath his polished exterior. She arranged another meeting, this time in the private study, away from the watchful eyes of the household staff. "Mr. Wicks," Agatha began, her tone both cordial and commanding, "I came across Martin's correspondence regarding discrepancies in the festival's budget. Care to explain the nature of these unaccounted funds?" Jonathan's facade wavered momentarily before he regained his composure. Yes. Martin was meticulous, but occasionally, in his zeal, he overlooked certain minor expenses. Nothing substantial enough to warrant concern?" Agatha raised an eyebrow. "Minor expenses that could potentially disrupt the entire festival's budget. Are you suggesting that Martin's oversight was the sole cause of these discrepancies?" Jonathan leaned back, his expression guarded. "I believe Martin was under immense pressure to make the festival a success. Such pressure can lead to mistakes, not malfeasance." Agatha's mind raced, weighing his words against the evidence. Or perhaps Martin was attempting to correct a more significant issue. "Did you ever discuss the possibility of misappropriated funds?" Jonathan shook his head firmly. "Never. Martin was a man of integrity. I trust his judgment implicitly." Agatha noted the unwavering denial, yet the slight tremor in his voice hinted at underlying tension. "I see. Next, Agatha sought out Lawrence Atkins, the town historian whose meticulous nature had previously aroused her suspicion. She found him in the historical archive room, surrounded by old manuscripts and faded photographs. "Mr. Atkins," Agatha greeted him warmly, "I have a few more questions regarding the festival's finances and your collaboration with Martin." Lawrence looked up, his expression composed, yet cautious. "Of course, Miss Marple. I'm here to assist in any way I can." Agatha presented the torn document. "This references unaccounted funds within the festival's budget. Can you provide any insight into these discrepancies?" Lawrence examined the document carefully before responding. "Financial oversight, perhaps. Managing a festival of this magnitude involves numerous transactions. It's possible that some expenses were misallocated or not properly documented." Agatha's gaze remained fixed on him. "Or someone might have deliberately diverted funds for personal gain. Was there anyone who had access to the financial records aside from you and Martin?" Lawrence hesitated, his fingers tapping lightly against the leather notebook. "Only the senior staff and our sponsor, Jonathan Wicks. Others handle day-to-day operations but don't have access to the primary accounts." Agatha nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Atkins. One final question. Did Martin express any concerns about financial integrity before his passing?" Lawrence's eyes met hers, a flicker of unease passing through. "It was always vigilant, but I can't record him voicing specific concerns recently. The pressure of the upcoming festival certainly weighed on him." Agatha made a note of his hesitance. "Understood. Your assistance is invaluable." As night descended over Willowview, Agatha Marple retreated to her private study, the room's opulent furnishings now serving as a backdrop to her relentless pursuit of the truth. She spread out the torn document and the letter, her mind weaving through the possibilities. Calvin Morris remained a figure of intrigue, his redemption arc shadowed by past misdeeds and current suspicions. Katie Stokes's protective instincts over Winston hinted at deeper loyalties, while Lawrence Atkins's meticulous nature suggested a potential for both dedication and deception. And then there was Jonathan Wicks, whose polished exterior masked a possible desperation to expand the festival's horizons. Agatha's dry wit surfaced once more. The tangled web of human motives. Each strand more intricate than the last. She pondered the footprints in the snow, now seemingly more significant with the discovery of Martin's intentions to confront financial discrepancies. Could the footprints belong to someone who wanted to intimidate Martin without drawing attention, or were they a deliberate attempt to frame someone else? The clock struck midnight, its chime echoing through the silent house. Agatha leaned back, her thoughts crystallizing. The torn document, the letter, and the footprints formed a coherent narrative. Martin had uncovered financial improprieties and was about to expose them. This threat had likely provoked someone with access and motive to act swiftly and discreetly. Her eyes settled on Lawrence Atkins, whose overly meticulous account seemed to align too perfectly with the evidence. Could his dedication to Willowview's history have blinded him to the corruption festering within? Or was his scholarly nature merely a facade for something more sinister? As dawn approached, Agatha realized she needed one final piece to complete the puzzle. She decided to revisit the crime scene, Martin's study, to search for any overlooked details. The room, now devoid of its grandeur, stood as a silent testament to the secrets it held. Upon entering, Agatha's eyes immediately sought out the window where the footprints had been found. She examined the glass, noting the slight condensation and a faint smudge that had been overlooked. Gently pressing the corner of her finger against the smudge, she retrieved a tiny piece of fabric. A fragment of a scarf, perhaps. Its pattern matched the threadbare edges of Calvin Morris's coat. A sudden realization dawned upon her. The footprints, the torn document, the letter, all pointed towards a deliberate attempt to frame Calvin. The torn lines in the budget suggested financial manipulation, potentially implicating Jonathan Wicks. The piece of fabric was a masterstroke of misdirection, a clue planted to divert suspicion from the true culprit. With the first light of morning filtering through the library's tall windows, Agatha summoned all the key players to the central hall. The opulent room, with its gilded accents and heavy furnishings, felt even more claustrophobic under the weight of impending revelation. "Ladies and gentlemen," Agatha began, her voice steady and commanding, "I believe we are closer to understanding the circumstances surrounding Martin Parkhurst's death." She methodically laid out the evidence, the torn document, the letter, the footprints, and the piece of fabric. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as eyes darted nervously among the gathered crowd. "Lawrence Atkins," she continued, her gaze fixed on the town historian, "your meticulous nature and access to the financial records provided you with both the opportunity and the means to manipulate the festival's budget. The torn document indicates an attempt to conceal unaccounted funds, likely siphoned off for personal gain." Lawrence's composed facade began to crumble, beads of sweat forming on his brow. "That's absurd. I have no reason." "On the contrary," Agatha interjected smoothly, "your role as the historian gave you unparalleled access to Martin's private correspondence. The footprints and the fabric piece suggest a planned diversion to frame Calvin Morris, whose past and demeanor made him an easy target for suspicion." Calvin stepped forward, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and vindication. "I swear I had nothing to do with this. I've been trying to rebuild my life, not destroy it." Agatha's dry wit returned as she concluded. "It seems Willowview's snow has not only concealed but also revealed the true nature of its inhabitants. Sometimes the most obvious culprits are merely convenient shadows cast by those with genuine malice." With a final piercing glance, Agatha turned to Lawrence. "Your ambition for the festival blinded you to the integrity it was meant to uphold. In your desire for expansion, you crossed a line that could not be uncrossed." As the truth settled over the room, Lawrence's resistance faltered. "I only wanted what was best for Willowview," he muttered, his facade finally breaking as he realized the futility of his deceit. The police moved in to take Lawrence into custody, his once esteemed reputation tarnished by his actions. The townspeople of Willowview, though shocked, felt a sense of relief that the truth had been unearthed. Calvin's redemption arc was finally complete. Freed from unfounded suspicions, he found a renewed sense of purpose in helping to restore the festival's true spirit, honoring Martin's legacy without the taint of deceit. As for Agatha Marple, she stood at the window of the central hall, watching the first rays of sun melt away the remnants of the night's mystery. Her dry observation lingered in her mind. In Willowview, as in life, the brightest lights often cast the darkest shadows. With the mystery resolved and the town's harmony restored, Agatha knew her work there was done. Yet, as she prepared to leave Willowview, she couldn't help but feel a lingering sense of satisfaction, a detective's quiet triumph in the face of human folly. The twilight hues of evening cast long, wavering shadows across Willowview's cobblestone streets, their darkened edges softened by the gentle snowfall. The town's opulent residences, adorned with twinkling lights and intricate ironwork, stood in stark contrast to the claustrophobic interiors, where secrets festered. Inside the Parkhurst residence, the grand library remained a sanctuary of silence, its heavy doors closed to the whispers of suspicion outside. Agatha Marple sat at the polished mahogany desk, her eyes fixed on the torn document and the enigmatic letter she had discovered earlier. The room's grandeur seemed to close in around her, the ornate ceiling and richly patterned wallpaper creating an almost oppressive atmosphere. Yet, within this opulent confinement, Agatha felt a sense of clarity, a path beginning to emerge from the tangled web of deceit. Agatha's keen mind had already begun to unravel the threads of the mystery, each clue weaving a more intricate pattern of suspicion and intrigue. As she meticulously reviewed her findings, 2 additional pieces of evidence stood out, promising to illuminate the shadowed corners of Martin Parkhurst's demise. The altered schedule. Laying the altered schedule on the desk, Agatha carefully examined the changes Martin had made. The original timetable had outlined a series of meticulously planned events, each one reflecting Martin's dedication to preserving Willowview's traditions. However, recent revisions revealed abrupt cancellations and rearrangements that seemed out of character for the methodical organ. "Interesting," Agatha murmured, her dry wit hidden beneath a thoughtful expression. A sudden shift in priorities, or perhaps an attempt to obscure something. The schedule had previously listed a private meeting between Martin and Jonathan Wicks at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, followed by a scheduled talk with Kelly Stokes at 4. Both appointments had been struck through, replaced with vague placeholders that provided no clear indication of the altered plans. Agatha's eyes narrowed as she pondered the significance. Cancelling a meeting with Jonathan, whose financial interests were directly at odds with Martin's preservationist stance, could indicate a desire to avoid confrontation or to conceal an impending threat. Similarly, rearranging the talk with Kelly hinted at shifting the focus away from concerns about Winston's well-being, suggesting that Martin might have been manipulating the narrative to mask his own discoveries. 4. The secret journal. Adjacent to the altered schedule lay Martin's secret journal, its cover worn yet sturdy. Agatha carefully opened the notebook, the pages revealing a mixture of meticulous notes and fragmented thoughts. While many entries were missing, the fragments she found were tantalizingly revealing. One partial entry read, "Discrepancies in the budget. Someone within our circle is siphoning funds, must confront them before the festival begins, concerned about the integrity of the event." Another snippet hinted at personal observations. Jonathan's ambition is both his strength and his weakness. His push for expansion may be driven by more than just economic gain. Agatha's dry wit surfaced once more as she considered the implications. Martin, always the diligent soul, uncovering the skeletons in Willowview's closet. The journal provided a glimpse into Martin's growing unease with the festival's financial integrity, suggesting that his death was not merely a matter of personal disputes but a calculated move to silence his investigations. The mention of Jonathan hinted at a deeper conspiracy, while the fragmented thoughts about others within the circle raised questions about who else might be implicated. With the altered schedule and the secret journal in hand, Agatha knew that her next steps required precision and subtlety. The evidence pointed towards financial misconduct and personal vendettas, but the true nature of the threat remained obscured by layers of deception. Determined to uncover more, Agatha returned to Martin's study, the room now stripped of its opulent distractions and rendered into a clinical scene of suspicion. The desk, once cluttered with festival plans, now felt like a shrine to hidden truths. She meticulously searched the study, her fingers tracing the edges of the desk and the intricate carvings that adorned its surface. Behind a stack of documents, she found a hidden compartment. Another layer of Martin's meticulousness. Inside lay a small, lockable box, its contents hidden from casual observation. Agatha carefully opened the box, revealing a collection of photographs and letters. The photographs depicted various town members, each one marked with a small red circle. One photo in particular caught her attention. A candid shot of Jonathan Wicks and Lawrence Atkins engaged in a heated discussion, their expressions tense and confrontational. A letter, partially torn, contained a cryptic message. "The foundation must remain untainted. Proceed with caution." Agatha's mind raced as she connected the dots. The marked photograph suggested surveillance or blackmail, while the letter hinted at a protective measure to safeguard certain interests. It became clear that Martin had uncovered something far more sinister than simple financial discrepancies, something that threatened the very foundation of Willowview's cherished tradition. Armed with these new revelations, Agatha knew it was time to confront the suspects with her findings. Each interview had peeled back a layer of Willowview's facade, revealing the underlying tensions and hidden motives that could have led to Martin's untimely death. Agatha sought out Lawrence Atkins once more, finding him amidst the dusty tomes of the historical archive of Room. His composed demeanor seemed unchanged, but Agatha detected a subtle shift in his posture as she approached. "Mr. Atkins," she greeted him, her tone courteous yet firm. I've come across some of Martin's personal notes and photographs. Care to explain the significance of these marked individuals?" Lawrence glanced at the photos, his expression guarded. "Those are key figures in Willowview's history. Martin and I were cataloguing influential families and their contributions to the town. The marks were simply for reference, nothing more." Agatha pressed further, her eyes unwavering. "Yet the letter found in the study suggests there were concerns about preserving the town's integrity. Was there ever any conflict between you and Martin regarding the festival's direction or financial matters?" Lawrence's calm facade began to crack, revealing a flicker of unease. Martin was passionate, yes, sometimes his enthusiasm bordered on obsession, but I would never... "Would you?" Agatha interjected smoothly. "The evidence suggests someone wanted to ensure certain aspects of Willowview remained unchanged, potentially at any cost. Did you ever feel threatened by Martin's findings?" Lawrence's eyes darted momentarily to the door before returning to Agatha. "I assure you, Miss Marple, my intentions have always been to preserve our history, not to manipulate it for personal gain." Agatha nodded slowly, her dry wit masked by a serious demeanor. "Sometimes the greatest threats come from within. Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Your cooperation is noted." As Lawrence departed, Agatha couldn't ignore the lingering suspicion that his scholarly dedication might mask deeper, more troubling motives. His meticulous nature, once seen as a virtue, now hinted at a capacity for manipulation and deceit. Next on her list was Jonathan Wicks, whose earlier interview had revealed more questions than answers. Agatha found him in the town's grand ballroom, overseeing the final touches for the evening's festivities. His presence commanded attention, yet there was a wariness in his movements that belied his authoritative exterior. "Mr. Wicks," Agatha greeted him with a polite nod. "May I have a moment of your time?" Jonathan turned, his expression polite but guarded. "Of course, Miss Marple. How may I assist you further?" Agatha wasted no time. "I've discovered that Martin cancelled a private meeting with you and rearranged a talk with Kelly Stokes on the evening of his death. Could you explain the reason for these last-minute changes?" Jonathan's eyes narrowed slightly, a subtle sign of irritation. Martin was finalizing the budget revisions. The cancellation was merely due to unforeseen circumstances, a minor conflict with scheduling. Agatha raised an eyebrow. "Unforeseen, indeed. Given your shared interest in the festival's expansion, did Martin express any concerns about the financial discrepancies you both encountered?" Jonathan sighed, leaning against the ornate railing of the balcony. Martin was thorough, but he was also under immense pressure. The festival's success was paramount to him, and sometimes that meant making difficult decisions. However, I assure you there was no malice involved. Agatha's gaze softened, yet her mind remained shut. Your earlier statement about the discrepancies in the budget, are you certain there was no misappropriation of funds? Martin's note suggests someone within the circle was siphoning money. Jonathan's composure faltered for a split second before he regained control. Martin was paranoid, I think. He doubted everyone's intentions, which strained our working relationship. But I'm confident that any discrepancies were unintentional oversights. Agatha nodded thoughtfully, noting the subtle defensiveness in his tone. And what about the piece of fabric found near the study window? It matches your coat's pattern. How do you explain that? Jonathan's jaw tightened, a rare crack in his polished facade. I must have stepped outside to gather my thoughts. Perhaps my coat snagged on something, leaving a trace. Agatha's dry wit surfaced once more. A plausible explanation, though the timing seems rather convenient. Jonathan took a deep breath, his facade slipping further. Miss Marple, I assure you I had no involvement in Martin's death. My sole interest has always been the prosperity of Willowview. Agatha remained impassive, her mind cataloguing the inconsistencies. Thank you, Mr. Wicks. Your cooperation is appreciated. As Jonathan retreated to attend to his duties, Agatha couldn't help but feel that his denial was less about innocence and more about protecting his own interests. His ambition, while beneficial to the festival's growth, now cast him in a suspicious light. Connecting the dots. With the additional clues in hand, Agatha Marple returned to her study, the room's opulent confines now serving as a stark contrast to the dark truth she was uncovering. The altered schedule and Martin's secret journal provided a clearer picture of the internal conflicts threatening Willowview's cherished traditions. The altered schedule indicated that Martin had been on the verge of exposing financial misconduct, likely implicating someone within the festival's inner circle. The secret journal hinted at personal vendettas and concealed threats, suggesting that Martin's investigation had stirred dangerous forces. Agatha's mind worked tirelessly, connecting the subtle clues. Jonathan Wicks had both the motive and the means to manipulate the festival's finances for personal gain, aligning with his push for expansion. Lawrence Atkin's meticulous nature and scholarly demeanor provided him with the perfect cover to divert suspicion and possibly engage in financial deceit. Kelly Stokes's protective instincts over Winston introduced another layer of loyalty that could be exploited or twisted. Calvin Morris remained a red herring, his troubled past and uneasy demeanor keeping him under suspicion despite his genuine efforts for redemption. As Agatha sifted through her notes, a final realization dawned upon her. The piece of fabric found near the study window, initially attributed to Calvin Morris, was a deliberate act of misdirection. The true culprit had used Calvin's past to frame him, capitalizing on the town's lingering suspicions. Turning her attention to Lawrence Atkins, Agatha considered his access to both the financial records and Martin's personal journal. His scholarly pursuit had given him the opportunity to manipulate documents and create false leads, such as the torn schedule and the planted fabric. The next morning, Willowview's town hall buzzed with anticipation for the final preparations of the Groundhog Day festival. The air was thick with the scent of pine and the soft hum of winter festivities, yet beneath the surface, tension simmered. Agatha Marple called for a meeting, the room's opulent decor now serving as a backdrop to the unfolding drama. The gathered townspeople, Dorothy Parkhurst, Jonathan Wicks, Kelly Stokes, Lawrence Atkins, and Calvin Morris, filled the grand hall, their faces a mix of anxiety and curiosity. "Ladies and gentlemen," Agatha began, her voice calm yet authoritative, "thank you for assembling on such short notice. We are here to address the tragic loss of Martin Parkhurst and to ensure that the truth is brought to light." She methodically laid out the evidence. The torn document indicating unaccounted funds and possible financial misappropriation, the altered schedule showing Martin's last-minute changes and cancellations, the secret journal revealing Martin's suspicions of internal deceit, the footprints in the snow and the piece of fabric meant to misdirect suspicion towards Calvin Morris. Each of these clues points towards a deliberate attempt to conceal financial misconduct within our festival's management. Agatha stated, her dry wit underscoring the gravity of the situation. Martin was on the verge of exposing someone who had been siphoning funds for personal gain. The altered schedule was a calculated move to disrupt his plans and obscure the financial trail. She turned her gaze to Lawrence Atkins, her eyes sharp and unwavering. "Mr. Atkins, your meticulous nature and access to both financial records and Martin's personal journal provided you with the perfect opportunity to manipulate evidence and divert suspicion. The torn document and the planted fabric are telltale signs of someone trying to cover their tracks." Lawrence's composure faltered, beads of sweat forming on his brow. "That's preposterous. I've dedicated my life to preserving Willowview's history, not to tarnishing it for personal gain." Agatha's dry wit surfaced once more. "Indeed, Mr. Atkins, yet the evidence suggests a far more complex involvement. Your expertise allowed you to fabricate a perfect alibi, manipulate the financial records, and create a red herring with Calvin's past. In your ambition to elevate Willowview's status, you crossed a line that could not be uncrossed." The room fell silent as Lawrence's defenses crumbled. "I only wanted what was best for Willowview," he muttered, his scholarly facade dissolving into desperation. "Martin threatened to expose the financial irregularities I was orchestrating to fund my personal projects. I had no choice but to ensure he remained silent." Agatha nodded solemnly. "In your desire for progress, you allowed greed to overshadow integrity. Martin's discovery of your misdeeds left you with no alternative but to eliminate the threat he posed. As the truth was unveiled, the townspeople of Willowview felt a collective sense of relief and betrayal. Lawrence Atkins was taken into custody, his once respected reputation irreparably tarnished by his actions. The festering secrets of the town were finally brought to light, allowing for a path toward healing and restoration. Calvin Morris was exonerated, his redemption arc reaching its culmination as he was welcomed back into the community with newfound respect. His genuine efforts to rebuild his life were acknowledged, and he became an integral part of the festival's revival, honoring Martin's legacy without the shadows of deceit. Kelly Stokes continued her unwavering dedication to Winston, her protective instincts now reinforced by the truth. Jonathan Wicks faced scrutiny for his financial dealings, his ambitions tempered by the realization of the consequences they had wrought. As for Agatha Marple, she stood at the window of the town hall, watching the first light of dawn illuminate the snow-covered street. A dry observation lingered in her mind. In Willowview, the brightest lights cast the darkest shadows. But with truth as our lantern, even the deepest darkness can be dispelled. With the mystery resolved and the town's harmony restored, Agatha knew her work in Willowview was complete. Yet, as she prepared to depart, she couldn't help but feel a lingering sense of satisfaction. A detective's quiet triumph in the face of human folly. The snow continued to fall, its gentle silence now a testament to the secrets uncovered and the truth embraced. Willowview, with its opulent yet claustrophobic charm, remained a picturesque haven where the delicate balance of tradition and progress could once again thrive under the watchful eyes of its resilient community. The grand clock in the drawing-room had chimed 6 times, its resonant tones mingling with the soft crackle of the fireplace. Willowview's evening had settled into a serene stillness. The opulent interiors of the Parkhurst residence cloaked in shadows that danced beneath the flickering light. Agatha Marple sat thoughtfully by the window, her keen eyes tracing the intricate frost patterns that adorned the glass. The warmth of the room contrasted sharply with the chill outside, a metaphor for the hidden tensions simmering beneath Willowview's picturesque facade. Agatha had spent the day meticulously piecing together the fragments of information gleaned from her interviews. Each conversation had unveiled layers of deception and concealed motives, weaving a complex tapestry of suspicion that now thickened with each passing hour. Dorothy Parkhurst, the grieving widow, had initially appeared as a figure of pure sorrow. However, Agatha's intuition suggested a deeper, more troubled undercurrent. The revelation that Dorothy had borrowed a significant sum from Jonathan Wicks, funds that Martin had vehemently opposed, introduced a new dimension to the mystery. Agatha arranged a discreet meeting with Dorothy in the cozy, albeit somber, drawing room. The heavy drapes muted the outside noise, creating an intimate atmosphere where secrets could be safely shared or concealed. "Mrs. Parkhurst," Agatha began gently, "I understand this is a difficult time and I appreciate your willingness to speak with me again." Dorothy looked up, her eyes red-rimmed but resolute. "Yes, Miss Marple, there are things you should know. Things that might clarify some misunderstandings." Agatha nodded, her presence calming yet encouraging. "I've discovered that you borrowed a substantial amount from Mr. Wicks. Can you explain the circumstances surrounding that loan?" Dorothy sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping. "It was last winter. Our finances were in dire straits. Martin was staunchly against taking loans, believing it would taint the festival's integrity. But I saw no other option to keep our household afloat and maintain the festival's operations." Agatha's dry wit surfaced as she observed Dorothy's conflicted emotions. "So, in essence, you found a way to secure the funds Mr. Parkhurst opposed." Dorothy nodded slowly. "Yes. It was a last resort. I never intended for it to become an issue. I kept it a secret because I didn't want to burden Martin with our troubles." Agatha leaned forward, her eyes meeting Dorothy's with subtle intensity. "And how do you feel about this loan now, given Martin's untimely death?" Dorothy hesitated, then replied softly, "I regret not being able to discuss it openly with Martin. Perhaps if I had, we could have found another solution. But now, with Martin gone, it all feels so complicated." Agatha made a mental note of Dorothy's remorse and the potential motive that lay beneath her sorrow. The hidden debt not only strained her relationship with Martin, but also tied her financially to Jonathan Wicks, a connection that could prove pivotal in unraveling the mystery. Jonathan Wicks, the wealthy sponsor, had already established himself as a man driven by ambition and financial acumen. His relentless push for the festival's expansion hinted at deeper motivations, ones that could have led him to capitalize on Martin's death. Agatha decided to confront Jonathan once more, this time in his lavishly appointed office within the Parkhurst residence. The room exuded an air of sophistication, with dark wood paneling, a large mahogany desk, and shelves lined with fine leather-bound volumes. A single desk lamp cast a pool of light, emphasizing the meticulously organized space. "Mr. Wicks," Agatha greeted him, her tone both respectful and probing, "thank you for meeting with me again." Jonathan stood, extending a hand that Agatha shook firmly. "Miss Marple, I trust you're making progress in your inquiry." Agatha took a seat across from him, her eyes never leaving his. "I believe I am. It has come to my attention that your financial support was integral to the festival's operations. Could you elaborate on your role in the recent budget revisions?" Jonathan's expression remained composed, though Agatha detected a flicker of defensiveness. "Certainly. The festival requires significant investment to grow, and my contributions have been pivotal in ensuring its success." Martin and I had differing views on the direction of the festival, particularly regarding expansion versus preservation. Agatha nodded thoughtfully. "Indeed. I've learned that Martin was against taking additional loans, yet you facilitated a substantial loan for the festival's operations. How do you reconcile these actions with your public stance?" Jonathan's eyes narrowed slightly, a subtle sign of irritation. "Martin was obstinate, often resisting necessary changes that would benefit the festival in the long run. My support was aimed at ensuring the festival's sustainability, not its downfall." Agatha leaned forward, her gaze penetrating. "Sustainability, yes, but at what cost?" Martin's notes indicate discrepancies in the festival's budget, funds that appear to be unaccounted for. Could these discrepancies be linked to your financial contributions? Jonathan's facade remained intact, but Agatha sensed a growing tension. "Discrepancies? I assure you, any irregularities are the result of Martin's meticulous but perhaps overly cautious budgeting. My investments were transparent and for the betterment of Willow View." Agatha's dry wit surfaced once more as she observed Jonathan's controlled demeanor. Sometimes the most transparent transactions conceal the deepest secrets. Were there any last-minute changes to the budget that Martin expressed concern over? Jonathan hesitated, a rare crack in his polished exterior. Martin was always thorough, but he trusted his team implicitly. If there were issues, they would have been addressed internally. Agatha nodded slowly, her mind racing through the possibilities. "Thank you, Mr. Wicks. Your insights are, as always, invaluable." As Jonathan left the office, Agatha couldn't help but ponder the financial entanglements that now tied Dorothy Parkhurst to Jonathan Wicks. The hidden loan not only provided Dorothy with immediate relief, but also bound her interests to those of the ambitious sponsor. This connection could be the key to understanding the financial pressures that might have driven someone to eliminate Martin Parkhurst. With each revelation, the puzzle of Martin's death became more intricate. The intertwined financial dealings between Dorothy and Jonathan suggested a web of dependency and control that could easily mask malicious intent. Agatha returned to her study, the room's opulent furnishings now feeling like a labyrinth of secrets waiting to be uncovered. She spread out her notes, connecting the dots between the altered schedule, the torn document, the secret journal, and the newly discovered financial troubles of Dorothy Parkhurst. A torn document referencing unaccounted funds in the festival's budget with lines heavily crossed out. Footprints in the snow near Martin's study window suggesting someone watched him from outside before the murder. An altered schedule revealing last-minute changes. Cancelled meetings with Jonathan Wicks and rearranged talks with Kelly Stokes. Secret journal with partial entries hinting at an unknown threat Martin was about to expose. New findings. 5. Dorothy's financial troubles. A significant loan from Jonathan Wicks, opposed by Martin. 6. Jonathan's financial ambitions, on the brink of pulling out sponsorship if Martin didn't agree to expansions, standing to gain financially from Martin's death. Agatha's dry wit broke the silence as she reflected on the layers of deception. The classic triangle of trust, ambition, and hidden debts. Willowview's groundhog may predict the weather, but its secrets predict its fate. She realized that both Dorothy and Jonathan had motives that intersected through financial dependency and disagreement over the festival's direction. Martin's death was no longer just a tragic accident, but a deliberate act, fueled by greed and the desire for control. Agatha knew that to move forward she needed to confront both Dorothy and Jonathan simultaneously, exposing the tangled web of deceit that had ensnared them all. The next step was to gather all the key players in one place, where the full extent of their hidden motives could be laid bare. As she prepared for the evening's gathering, Agatha couldn't help but feel the weight of the town's secrets pressing in around her. Willowview, with its opulent yet claustrophobic settings, mirrored the intricate and confined nature of the mystery she was determined to solve. The stage was set, and Agatha Marple was ready to peel back the layers of deception, her dry wit and astute observations guiding her towards the truth hidden beneath Willowview's serene exterior. The evening air in Willowview had grown crisp, the fading light casting long shadows across the snow-blanketed streets. Inside the Parkhurst residence, the Grand Library remained a sanctuary of opulence, its high ceilings adorned with intricate moldings and shelves laden with leather-bound volumes. The heavy drapes muted the outside world, creating an atmosphere that felt both intimate and claustrophobic. A fitting backdrop for the secrets that now hung heavy in the air. Agatha Marple sat at a stately oak table, her notepad open before her as the next of her interviews commenced. The room, though lavishly furnished, seemed to constrict around her, the ornate fireplace crackling softly, its warm glow contrasting with the cold tensions that permeated the gathering. The door to the library opened with a soft creak, and Kelly Stokes entered, her practical attire a stark contrast to the room's grandeur. Her olive-green parka was neatly fastened, and her dark hair was pulled back into a no-nonsense ponytail. Despite her sturdy appearance, there was an underlying tension in her posture. a testament to her protective instincts over Winston, the town's cherished groundhog. Miss Marple, Kelly greeted, her voice steady yet edged with frustration. I appreciate you finding the time to speak with me. Agatha offered a reassuring smile. Thank you, Kelly. Please have a seat. Kelly settled into the chair opposite Agatha, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. I wanted to discuss the evening before Martin's passing. There are things you should know. Agatha nodded, her eyes attentive. Of course, I understand you had a confrontation with Martin regarding Winston's enclosure. Can you elaborate on that? Kelly took a deep breath, her gaze momentarily distant. Yes. Martin decided to relocate Winston to a larger enclosure to accommodate the anticipated increase in visitors. I opposed the move, fearing it would disrupt Winston's routine and well-being. I voiced my concerns repeatedly, but Martin was insistent. Last night, after our discussion, I left his study feeling uneasy. Agatha leaned forward, her dry wit barely concealed. And during your brief confrontation, did you notice anything unusual? Any signs that someone else might have been present or that Martin was hiding something? Kelly hesitated, then nodded slowly. After our argument, I went back to tend to Winston, but when I returned to the study later, I found Martin's desk ransacked. Papers were strewn everywhere. Agatha's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Ransacked, you say? That certainly complicates things. Did you see anyone else in the study that evening? Kelly shook her head firmly. No, it was just the two of us, unless someone snuck in after I left, but I didn't see or hear anyone else. Agatha made a mental note of the ransacked desk and the implication that someone might have been searching for evidence. Thank you, Kelly. Your observations are invaluable. As Kelly departed, Agatha couldn't help but sense the layers of tension beneath her composed exterior. Her protective instincts over Winston hinted at deeper loyalties and possible motives that extended beyond mere concern for an animal's well-being. With Kelly's interview concluded, Agatha turned her attention to Lawrence Atkins, the town historian whose meticulous nature had already piqued her curiosity. The door to the library opened again, and Lawrence entered, his silver hair neatly combed and his wire-rimmed spectacles perched on the bridge of his nose. Clad in a tweed blazer with elbow patches and a crisp white shirt, he carried a leather-bound notebook under one arm, the corners worn from frequent use. Mr. Atkins, Agatha greeted him warmly, gesturing to the empty chair beside her. Please, have a seat. Lawrence offered a polite nod before settling into the chair, his demeanor calm and composed. Miss Marple, it's a pleasure to assist in any way I can. Agatha placed her notepad on the table, her gaze steady. I wanted to revisit the evening before Martin's passing. During our previous conversation, you mentioned collaborating closely with Martin on the festival's official program. Did you notice anything unusual, or any signs that Martin was under particular stress? Lawrence adjusted his spectacles, his expression thoughtful. Martin was indeed very dedicated, perhaps to a fault. The preparations for the festival were intense, and he was always striving for perfection. On the evening in question, we were finalizing the historical exhibits. Martin seemed more preoccupied than usual, but I attributed it to the pressure of the upcoming event. Agatha leaned forward, her dry wit masked by a serious tone. I see. However, there have been mentions of missing historical records. Can you shed any light on that? Lawrence's calm facade showed a flicker of unease. Missing records? That's quite troubling. We maintain strict archives here. I'm not aware of any documents being misplaced or taken. Agatha raised an eyebrow, sensing the evasiveness. Strict archives indeed. But given Martin's recent investigations into the festival's finances, could there have been any reason someone might want to conceal or destroy historical records? Lawrence hesitated, his fingers tapping lightly against the notebook. Martin was thorough, but I assure you our historical records are beyond reproach. If anything, he was trying to ensure our legacy was well documented. Agatha's eyes remained fixed on him, her mind sifting through the subtle cues. Understood, Mr. Atkins. One last question. Were there any disagreements or conflicts between Martin and anyone else that you were aware of? Lawrence shook his head firmly. Not beyond the usual professional differences. Martin was passionate, but he respected differing opinions. If there were conflicts, they were resolved amicably. Agatha nodded slowly, her dry observation lingering. "Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Your cooperation is appreciated." As Lawrence left, Agatha couldn't ignore the nagging suspicion that his perfectly polished account was too immaculate, a possible smokescreen for deeper, more troubling motives. The final interview of the evening was with Calvin Morris, the town's outcast. Seeking redemption, Agatha arranged to meet him at the local library, a modest building that stood in stark contrast to the opulent residences of Willowview. The library's brick facade and large, unadorned windows hinted at Calvin's practical nature, a sharp divergence from the decorative excesses of the Parkhurst estate. Calvin sat alone at a small table, his broad shoulders and tall frame giving him a presence that seemed both protective and burdened. His dark hair was neatly combed back, though a few rebellious strands framed his face, hinting at a restless mind. A thin scar traced a line above his left eyebrow, a remnant of a confrontation he rarely spoke about. His hazel eyes held a mixture of defiance and vulnerability, darting around the library as if seeking both acceptance and concealment. "Mr. Morris." Agatha greeted him gently, taking a seat opposite him. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." Calvin offered a tentative smile, though his eyes remained guarded. "Miss Marple, I appreciate you taking the time." Agatha nodded, her tone both sympathetic and probing. "I understand you and Martin had a complex relationship. Can you tell me more about the nature of your interactions?" Calvin sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Martin was the one who gave me a chance when no one else would. He lent me the money to get back on my feet, to start fresh. But he never let me forget that debt. It was a constant reminder that I owed him everything." Agatha's dry wit surfaced as she observed Calvin's conflicted emotions. "Such reminders can be burdensome. Did this ever lead to disagreements between you two?" Calvin nodded slowly. "Yes, occasionally. Martin was very particular about how the festival was run. He wanted everything to be perfect, to preserve Willowview's charm. But I had my own ideas about how to keep the festival sustainable, especially with the financial pressures he often ignored." Agatha leaned forward, her eyes meeting his with subtle intensity. "I've learned that Martin was pressuring you to repay your debt more quickly. How did that affect your relationship?" Calvin hesitated, his unease evident. "Martin was pushing me hard to get back on my feet, to repay the loan. I intended to do so, but things didn't always go as planned. It was stressful. But I respected him. I never wanted to hurt him." Agatha's mind raced through the implications of his words. Martin's pressure to repay the debt could have created a motive, but Calvin's genuine remorse and determination to rebuild his life painted him in a sympathetic light. Were there any recent disagreements that might have escalated beyond professional tensions? Calvin shook his head firmly. "No, nothing of that sort. I've been trying to stay out of trouble, to focus on my work, and to repay Martin as best I can." Agatha noted the consistency in Calvin's account, yet the unease in his demeanor suggested lingering doubts. "Thank you, Mr. Morris. Your honesty is appreciated." As Calvin left the library, Agatha couldn't help but ponder his uneasy demeanor, and the complex web of financial dependency and resentment that tied him to Martin. His quest for redemption was genuine, yet the shadows of his past mistakes continued to haunt him, making him a potential target in the tangled tapestry of Willowview's secrets. Back in her private study, Agatha Marple sat in contemplative silence, the room's opulent furnishings now serving as a backdrop to her relentless pursuit of the truth. She reviewed her notes, the key observations and mini-clues weaving together a more intricate puzzle. A torn document referencing unaccounted funds in the festival's budget with lines heavily crossed out. Footprints in the snow near Martin's study window suggesting someone watched him from outside before the murder. An altered schedule revealing last-minute changes with Jonathan Wicks and rearranged talks with Kelly Stokes. Secret journal with partial entries hinting at an unknown threat. Martin was about to expose Dorothy's financial troubles, a significant loan from Jonathan Wicks opposed by Martin, Jonathan's financial ambitions, on the brink of pulling out sponsorship if Martin didn't agree to expansions, standing to gain financially from Martin's death. Kelly's ransacked desk, suggesting someone was searching for incriminating documents. Lawrence Atkins's evasive behavior when asked about missing historical record. Dorothy's financial dependency on Jonathan Wicks, revealing a financial entanglement that could motivate her to protect Jonathan's interests. Lawrence Atkins's alibi and missing records. His evasiveness when questioned about missing historical records raised suspicions about his role in the financial discrepancies. Calvin Morris's confession of past arguments, introducing a potential motive, though his genuine remorse and quest for redemption complicated his standing. Agatha's dry observation punctuated her reflections. The layers of deception here are as intricate as the frost patterns on these windows. Each clue, each confession, reveals a deeper shade of human folly. Greed, jealousy, fear, all playing their parts in this tragic tale. Determined to uncover the truth, Agatha knew her next steps involved confronting the remaining suspects with the newly connected clue. The intertwined financial dependencies and personal grudges suggested a conspiracy that went beyond mere professional disagreements. She resolved to revisit the ransacked desk. There might be more hidden clues left behind. Investigate the missing historical records. Understanding what was lost could shed light on Lawrence Atkins' true motives. Examine the financial transactions. Delving deeper into the budget discrepancies could reveal the extent of Jonathan Wicks's involvement. As the night deepened, Willowview remained cloaked in its serene, yet deceptive tranquility. Agatha Marple, ever the astute observer, was prepared to peel back the layers of this intricate mystery, her dry wit and keen intellect guiding her through the opulent yet claustrophobic corridors of human deceit. With each passing moment, the puzzle of Martin Parkhurst's death became more defined, the shadows within Willowview's elegant facade revealing the dark motives that had driven someone to silence its beloved organizer. Agatha's pursuit of the truth was unwavering, her presence a beacon of clarity in the tangled web of secrets that now enveloped the quaint town. The evening had settled over Willowview like a thick velvet curtain, the town's opulent residences casting long, intricate shadows that mingled with the soft glow of gaslights. Inside the Parkhurst residence, the grand library remained a bastion of elegance, its high ceilings adorned with ornate moldings and shelves lined with leather-bound volumes. The heavy drapes muted the outside world, creating an atmosphere that felt both intimate and claustrophobic, a perfect setting for the secrets that now hung heavy in the air. Agatha Marple sat at her usual spot by the fireplace, the warm glow reflecting in her thoughtful grey eyes. Her notepad lay open before her, filled with meticulous notes from the day's interviews. The crackling fire provided a comforting backdrop to her contemplative silence, yet her mind was anything but at rest. The mystery of Martin Parkhurst's death was beginning to take shape, but the contours were still blurred by layers of deception and hidden motives. As Agatha reviewed her notes, a sudden commotion outside drew her attention. The soft hum of conversations in the drawing room had given way to urgent whispers and the clinking of china. Curious, she rose gracefully and approached the doorway, peering into the hallway where the household staff moved with a heightened sense of urgency. Before she could fully grasp the scene, a servant burst into the library, breathless and wide-eyed. "Miss Marple, there's been another break-in at Martin's study." Agatha's heart quickened. Despite the room's opulent confines, the tightness of the atmosphere mirrored the escalating tension. She swiftly moved to the study, her mind racing through possibilities. Inside, the sight was unsettling. Papers lay scattered across the floor, drawers left ajar, and a cryptic note pinned to the center of Martin's cluttered desk. "The shadow at dawn reveals more than the groundhog." The note read, the ink smudged as if hastily written. Agatha picked up the note, her dry wit momentarily softened by the gravity of the situation. "Ah, the groundhog's shadow. How delightfully metaphorical," she murmured to herself, recognizing the hidden layers typical of Martin's meticulous nature. As she surveyed the scene, another shocking piece of evidence came to light. A fragment of a scarf, unmistakably Calvin Morris's, found beneath a stack of papers. The locked study now bore the hallmarks of a deliberate search, and the discovery of Calvin's scarf in such an incongruous place cast a dark shadow over the troubled man's redemption arc. Returning to her private study, Agatha laid out the new findings alongside her previous notes. A torn document references unaccounted funds in the festival's budget with lines heavily crossed out. Footprints in the snow near Martin's study window, suggesting someone watched him from outside before the murder. An altered schedule, revealing last-minute changes. Cancelled meetings with Jonathan Wicks and rearranged talks with Kelly Stokes. Secret journal. Partial entries hinting at an unknown threat Martin was about to expose. Jonathan's financial ambitions, on the brink of pulling out sponsorship if Martin didn't agree to expansions, standing to gain financially from Martin's death. Kelly's ransacked desk, suggesting someone was searching for incriminating documents. Lawrence Atkins' evasive behavior when asked about missing historical records. Calvin Morris's confession. He argued with Martin days before the murder. Martin was pressuring him to repay owed debt, which Calvin swears he intended to do eventually. Agatha's dry observation punctuated her reflections. The layers of deception here are as intricate as the frost patterns on these windows. Each clue, each confession reveals a deeper shade of human folly, greed, jealousy, fear, all playing their parts in this tragic tale. Determined to uncover the truth behind the ransacked study and the mysterious note, Agatha arranged another meeting with Kelly Stokes. They met in the zookeeper's modest office, a stark contrast to the Parkhurst residence's opulence. The room was functional, adorned with animal care manuals and photos of Winston, the beloved groundhog. Agatha began, her tone both sympathetic and probing. "I understand you found Martin's desk ransacked. Did you notice anything unusual before or after you left the study?" Kelly nodded, her practical demeanor belying the tension in her eyes. "Yes, after our conversation about Winston's enclosure, I left the study feeling uneasy. When I returned to check on Winston, I heard noises, like someone rifling through papers. By the time I got back, the study was in disarray." Agatha leaned forward, her dry wit evident in her subtle smile. "Sounds like someone was desperately searching for something. Do you have any idea what they might have been looking for?" Kelly hesitated, then replied, "I can only guess. Martin was working on some new plans for the festival, but I didn't see what he was so focused on." Agatha made a mental note of Kelly's protective instincts, and the possibility that someone was searching for incriminating documents related to the festival's financial discrepancies. Next, Agatha sought out Lawrence Atkins, the town historian whose evasive behavior had already raised suspicions. She found him in the historical archive room, surrounded by old manuscripts and faded photographs. His composed exterior masked a subtle unease, his fingers nervously tapping against a stack of papers. "Mr. Atkins," Agatha greeted him warmly. "I need to discuss the missing historical records you mentioned earlier." Lawrence's calm facade wavered slightly. "Miss Marple, I assure you the records are safe. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding or a misplaced document." Agatha's dry wit surfaced as she observed his defensive posture. Misplaced or deliberately hidden? Given Martin's recent investigations into the festival's finances, it's plausible someone would want to conceal information that could implicate them. Lawrence maintained his composure, but Agatha detected a flicker of irritation in his eyes. "Martin was thorough, but I never intended any harm. If records are missing, I will do everything in my power to locate them." Agatha nodded thoughtfully. "Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Your cooperation is noted." As Lawrence departed, Agatha couldn't ignore the nagging suspicion that his meticulous nature might be a facade concealing deeper motives. His scholarly dedication provided both an alibi and a potential cover for manipulating evidence. The revelation of Calvin Morris's scarf in the locked study sent ripples of suspicion through Willowview. The townspeople, already wary of Calvin's troubled past, were quick to condemn him as a potential culprit. Agatha, however, remained steadfast in her pursuit of the truth, recognizing the intricate layers of misdirection at play. Determined to understand the significance of the scarf and its connection to Calvin, Agatha arranged a private interview with him. They met at the local library, a modest building that stood in stark contrast to the opulent residences of Willowview. The library's brick facade and large unadorned windows hinted at Calvin's practical nature, a sharp divergence from the decorative excesses of the Parkhurst estate. Calvin sat alone at a small table, his broad shoulders and tall frame giving him a presence that seemed both protective and burdened. His dark hair was neatly combed back, though a few rebellious strands framed his face, hinting at a restless mind. A thin scar traced a line above his left eyebrow, a remnant of a confrontation he rarely spoke about. His hazel eyes held a mixture of defiance and vulnerability, darting around the library as if seeking both acceptance and concealment. Mr. Morris, Agatha greeted him gently, taking a seat opposite him. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me again." Calvin offered a tentative smile, though his eyes remained guarded. "Miss Marple, I understand the town is looking for answers, and I want to help in any way I can." Agatha nodded, her tone both sympathetic and probing. "I saw the piece of your scarf found in Martin's study. Can you explain how it might have gotten there?" Calvin's jaw tightened, his defensive stance evident. "I don't know how it got there. I was at home that evening working on some designs for the new workshop. I have no reason to harm Martin." Agatha's dry observation punctuated her questioning. "You mentioned earlier that you and Martin had arguments about repaying your debts. Could someone have used that tension to frame you?" Calvin sighed deeply, his frustration evident. "I've been trying to rebuild my life, not to drag anyone else down. If someone is trying to frame me, I have no idea who it could be." Agatha leaned forward, her eyes meeting his with subtle intensity. "Have you noticed anyone acting suspiciously or attempting to distance themselves from you recently?" Calvin shook his head firmly. "No, nothing of the sort. If anyone is trying to set me up, they're very good at it." Agatha nodded thoughtfully, recognizing the genuine fear and confusion in Calvin's demeanor. "Thank you, Mr. Morris. Your cooperation is appreciated." As Calvin left the library, Agatha couldn't shake the feeling that his troubled past was being manipulated to divert attention from the true culprit. The planted scarf was a classic red herring, exploiting the town's lingering suspicions to frame an innocent man. Connecting the dots. Back in her private study, Agatha spread out the latest findings alongside her existing notes. The torn document, the altered schedule, the secret journal, Dorothy's financial troubles, Jonathan's ambitions, Kelly's ransacked desk, Lawrence's evasiveness, and now Calvin's framed evidence. All pieces of a complex puzzle that required careful consideration. Agatha's dry wit surfaced once more as she mused over the intricate web of deceit. It seems Willowview's groundhog isn't the only one revealing shadows at dawn. Her keen mind began to weave the threads together. Dorothy Parkhurst's financial troubles and her loan from Jonathan Wicks created a financial dependency that could motivate her to protect Jonathan's interests. Jonathan Wicks's financial ambitions and potential gain from Martin's death positioned him as a prime suspect, especially with the hidden funds. Lawrence Atkins's evasiveness and access to historical records hinted at potential manipulation and concealment of evidence. Kelly Stokes' ransacked desk suggested someone was searching for incriminating documents, possibly related to the financial discrepancies. Calvin Morris's framed evidence indicated a deliberate attempt to divert suspicion from the true culprit, leveraging his troubled past. A moment of clarity. As the clock struck midnight, Agatha leaned back, her mind crystallizing the connections between the clues. The torn document and the secret journal pointed towards financial misconduct, while the altered schedule suggested attempts to disrupt Martin's plans to expose the truth. The footprints and the planted scarf were classic misdirections, diverting attention towards Calvin Morris, an easy target due to his past. But the true puzzle lay in the interplay between Dorothy, Jonathan, and Lawrence. Dorothy's financial dependency on Jonathan, combined with Lawrence's access to historical records, painted a picture of a potential alliance built on mutual interests and hidden agendas. Agatha's dry observation lingered in her mind. Sometimes, the shadows cast by ambition and desperation are the darkest of all. Determined to uncover the truth, Agatha knew her next steps involved confronting the remaining suspects with the newly connected clues. The intertwined financial dependencies and personal grudges suggested a conspiracy that went beyond mere professional disagreements. She resolved to revisit the ransacked desk. There might be more hidden clues left behind. Investigate the missing historical records. Understanding what was lost could shed light on Lawrence Atkins's true motives. Examine the financial transactions. Delving deeper into the budget discrepancies could reveal the extent of Jonathan Wicks's involvement. Confront Dorothy Parkhurst. Her financial troubles and connection to Jonathan made her a key figure in the unfolding mystery. As night deepened, Willowview remained cloaked in its serene yet deceptive tranquility. Agatha Marple, ever the astute observer, was prepared to peel back the layers of this intricate mystery, her dry wit and keen intellect guiding her through the opulent yet claustrophobic corridors of human deceit. With each passing moment, the puzzle of Martin Parkhurst's death became more defined. The shadows within Willowview's elegant facade revealing the dark motives that had driven someone to silence its beloved organizer. Agatha's pursuit of the truth was unwavering, her presence a beacon of clarity in the tangled web of secrets that now enveloped the quaint town. Agatha knew that the true nature of the mystery lay hidden beneath layers of deception and subtle misdirection. The opulent yet claustrophobic settings of Willowview mirrored the intricate and confined nature of the mystery she was determined to solve. With each step, she edged closer to the heart of the enigma, her dry wit and astute observations poised to pierce through the veil of secrets that cloaked the town in silent tension. The night had embraced Willowview in a blanket of silent snowfall, the town's opulent residences glowing warmly against the cold, darkened landscape. Inside the Parkhurst residence, the grand library stood as a testament to both wealth and intellectual pursuit, its high ceilings adorned with intricate moldings and shelves burdened with leather-bound volumes. The heavy drapes muffled the outside world, creating an atmosphere that felt both intimate and claustrophobic, a perfect setting for the secrets that now clung to the air like the persistent winter chill. Agatha Marple sat alone at a stately oak table, her notepad open before her, meticulously reviewing the day's interviews and notes. The crackling fireplace cast flickering shadows across the room, adding to the sense of unease that permeated the household. The mystery of Martin Parkhurst's death was beginning to take shape, but the contours remained blurred by layers of deception and hidden motives. As Agatha pondered the intricate web of clues, a sudden commotion outside interrupted her thoughts. The soft hum of conversations in the drawing room had given way to urgent whispers and the clinking of china. Intrigued, she rose gracefully and approached the doorway, peering into the hallway, where the household staff moved with heightened urgency. Before she could fully grasp the scene, a servant burst into the library, breathless and wide-eyed. "Miss Marple, there's been another break-in at Martin's study." Agatha's heart quickened. Despite the room's opulent confines, the tightness of the atmosphere mirrored the escalating tension. She swiftly moved to the study, her mind racing through possibilities. Inside, the sight was unsettling. Papers lay scattered across the floor, drawers left ajar, and a cryptic note pinned to the center of Martin's cluttered desk. "The shadow at dawn reveals more than the groundhog," the note read. The ink smudged, as if hastily written. Agatha picked up the note, her dry wit momentarily softened by the gravity of the situation. "Ah, the groundhog's shadow. How delightfully metaphorical," she murmured to herself, recognizing the hidden layers typical of Martin's meticulous nature. As she surveyed the scene, another shocking piece of evidence came to light. A fragment of a scarf, unmistakably Calvin Morris's, found beneath a stack of paper. The locked study now bore the hallmarks of a deliberate search, and the discovery of Calvin's scarf in such an incongruous place cast a dark shadow over the troubled man's redemption arc. Returning to her private study, Agatha laid out the new findings alongside her previous note. 1.a torn document references unaccounted funds in the festival's budget with lines heavily crossed out. 2. Footprints in the snow near Martin's study window, suggesting someone watched him from outside before the murder. 3. Four. Secret journal. Partial entries hinting at an unknown threat Martin was about to expose. 5. Dorothy's financial troubles. A significant loan from Jonathan Wicks, opposed by Martin. 6. Jonathan's financial ambitions, on the brink of pulling out sponsorship if Martin didn't agree to expansions. Standing to gain financially from Martin's death. 7. Kelly's ransacked desk, suggesting someone was searching for incriminating documents. 8. Nine. Calvin Morris's confession. He argued with Martin days before the murder. Martin was pressuring him to repay old debts, which Calvin swears he intended to do, eventually. Ins. Calvin's scar found in the locked study linking him directly to the second break-in. 11. Agatha's dry observation punctuated her reflections. The layers of deception here are as intricate as the frost patterns on these windows. Each clue, each confession reveals a deeper shade of human folly. Greed, jealousy, fear, all playing their parts in this tragic tale. As the night